army get drowned. Oh, Mary, don't you weep. Oh, Mary, don't you weep, don't you mourn. Oh, Mary, don't you weep, don't you mourn. Didn't Pharaoh's army get drowned? Oh, Mary, don't you weep. You know Moses, he stood on that Red Sea shore, smote that water with a 2x4. Didn't Pharaoh's army get drowned? Oh, Mary, don't you weep. Oh, Mary, don't you weep, don't you mourn. Oh, Mary, don't you weep, don't you mourn. Didn't Pharaoh's army get drowned? Oh, Mary, don't you weep. Now God did over that rainbow sign, said it's gonna be fire next time. Didn't Pharaoh's army get drowned? Oh, Mary, don't you weep. Oh, Mary, don't you weep, don't you mourn. Oh, Mary, don't you weep, don't you mourn. Didn't Pharaoh's army get drowned? Oh, Mary, don't you weep. You know, one of these nights about 12 o'clock, this old world, she's gonna rock. Didn't Pharaoh's army get drowned? Oh, Mary, don't you weep. Oh, Mary, don't you weep, don't you mourn. Oh, Mary, don't you weep, don't you mourn. Didn't Pharaoh's army get drowned? Oh, Mary, don't you weep. Rock it out, you guys. Oh, Mary, don't you weep, don't you mourn. Oh, Mary, don't you weep, don't you mourn. Didn't Pharaoh's army get drowned? Oh, Mary, don't you weep. Oh, Mary, don't you weep, don't you mourn. Oh, Mary, don't you weep, don't you mourn. Didn't Pharaoh's army get drowned? Oh, Mary.
Hey, good morning, Helena. Not only are you amazing for being here, but you're amazing for waiting, so thank you so much. I am Rachel Carol Rivas. I am the co-director at the Montana Human Rights Network. Today, we are joining hundreds of thousands of people across the U.S. in all 50 states in over 800 localities with a very clear and a non-negotiable demand. Reunite families and end family separation and detention now. And that is because we believe no hate, no fear, immigrants are welcome here. No hate, no fear. Refugees are welcome here. No hate, no fear. Immigrants are welcome here. No hate, no fear. Refugees are welcome here. Again, no hate, no fear. Immigrants are welcome here. No hate, no fear. Refugees are welcome here. Thank you. I do want to take a chance to thank each and every one of you for taking a stand and being here today. I also want to thank a few key people and make a few announcements. If folks need translation into ASL, please come forward. Melissa Rivera is here with us translating up front to my right. Woo! I also like to thank our organizational co-sponsors, the Montana Immigrant Justice Alliance, Helena YWCA, the Coalition Against Domestic and Sexual Violence, Helena Rising, and Helena DSA. Thank you. I often feel like I'm sort of rabble-rousing groups, but I have to say this is one of those moments where the group was forming alone, and so I want to also thank a really really great group of volunteers who gathered over the last 2 weeks to help make today possible. So thank you to each of you volunteers. Today we're going to hear from a few speakers. We're going to make some noise so they can hear us all the way in D.C. Woo-hoo! We're going to remember what it is that binds us together as humans and as families. And then we're going to go out and we're going to continue to do this important work in our community. And I need you to promise me that. Do you promise to go out and do the important work to make a difference when we leave here today?
Yeah! Get going!
During the event today, we ask you also to visit our Families Belong Together and Free photo booth. Take a photo with you and your family, or use your phone and take a selfie of you and your family. I'd like you to tag it with the hashtag Families Belong Together and Free MT, and send that picture on to our federal delegation, telling them to act now. There are also clipboards going around, so sign up, keep informed on human rights issues that need your attention. In addition, there's some fact sheets and your call to action. You can find those at the table under the blue awning, and that's all your information you need to know to what to ask for from our elected officials, how to get a hold of them, and some basic facts about what's going on, because some days it feels like a moving target. And here's what we're calling for, folks. We are calling to a complete end to the separation of immigrant families. For the reunification of immigrant families and children who have been separated now. The end to the zero-tolerance detention of families who are seeking asylum. And a way for immigrants who are here now to fully participate in our communities, including passage of a Clean Dream Act. These demands take heart, and they take compassion. So now, let's turn to setting our moral compass. I want to welcome Jeanette Fraguglia and Martha Gonzalez to offer a prayer.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Rachel, for inviting us. And thank you to all of you for being here. A moment for grace. God of our wandering ancestors, long have we known that your heart is with the refugee and the immigrant, that you were born into time in a family of refugees, fleeing violence in their homeland, who then gathered up their hungry child and fled to an alien country. Their cry, your cry, resounds through the ages. Will you let me in? Give us hearts that break open when our brothers and sisters turn to us with that same cry. Then surely all these things will follow. Ears will no longer turn deaf to their voices. Eyes will see a moment for grace instead of a threat. Tongues will not be silenced, but will instead advocate. And hands will reach out, working for peace in their homeland, working for justice in the lands where they seek safe haven. Lord, protect all refugees and immigrants in their travels. May they find in me a friend, and so make me worthy of the refuge I have found in you. Amen.
Dios de nuestros antepasados errantes, hace mucho que hemos sabido que tu corazón está con el refugiado, que tú, Señor, naciste en el tiempo en una familia de refugiados, escapando violencia de tu patria, quien luego, junto a ti, su hijo, hambriento, escaparon a un país extraño. Su grito, tu llanto, Señor, resuena a través de las edades. ¿Me dejas entrar? Danos corazones que se rompen cuando nuestros hermanos y hermanas se vuelven hacia nosotros con ese mismo llanto. Entonces, seguramente, todas estas cosas seguirán. Las orejas ya no se volverán sordas a sus voces. Los ojos verán un momento de gracia en lugar de una amenaza. Las lenguas no serán silenciadas, sino que defenderán al refugiado. Y las manos se extenderán trabajando por la paz en su patria, trabajando por justicia en la tierra donde buscan refugio. Señor, protege al refugiado que viaja. Cuando encuentren un amigo en mí que me hace merecedor del refugio que encuentre en ti. Amén.
No wall, no ban. I'm here to hold your hand. No wall, no ban. I'm here to hold your hand. No wall, no ban. I'm here to hold your hand. No wall, no ban. I'm here to hold your hand. No wall, no ban. I'm here to hold your hand. No wall, no ban. I'm here to hold your hand. No wall, no ban. I'm here to hold your hand. No wall, no ban. I'm here to hold your hand. Whoa. Woo! You know, that prayer reminds me of why we are all here in this moment. I think that what brought us here today is the inhumanity in front of us and the connection to each other. This administration is breaking up families. It's happening on the border, at our churches, our schools, our workplaces, and right here in Montana. Toddlers are being ripped from their mother's arms as they seek protection at the border. Moms and dads who have lived in the U.S. for decades are being forced to either leave their children in the country they know or to take them with them to face violence and death in a place that they can't even call home. Kids are watching their parents being hauled away by ICE. From toddlers at our southern borders to dreamers and children of immigrants, this is a humanitarian crisis. These families are suffering a jail sentence for seeking safety. They deserve protection, not imprisonment, and kids aren't pawns. Many of you know of the local state worker, Jordan Dryle Roberts, who quit his job in protest of ICE's intrusion into the private worker data of Montanans just because they were out to get immigrants. Woo! Jordan is in DC right now, speaking to a crowd there. He is an inspiration. You know, sometimes it feels like there isn't a lot that our state policymakers can do on immigration, but they can lead with values, and we sure as heck don't have to make us an easy target for ICE. Right now, our state is handing over private data of Montana workers while ICE goes on a fishing spree using administrative subpoenas. We are asking Governor Bullock to tell ICE to get a court subpoena just like everyone else. Families belong together and free. Families belong together and free. Families belong together and free. Woo, woo, woo.
Together and free. Free 'em!
My friend Jorge Quintana has been a stalwart stalwart advocate for so many human rights issues, but he's also knowledgeable and strategic about how to get it done. Jorge is the vice chair of the Hispanic Caucus of the Democratic Central Committee and my friend. Welcome, Jorge.
Good morning. It does my heart so good to see you all out here today. 55 years ago, my parents left their homeland. They left everything they had ever known and everyone they had ever loved, and they fled. They fled to the United States. They left with broken hearts and shattered dreams, but they came, as did countless millions of others, in search of peace and a chance to work, to live, to love, to raise a family. And in the United States they arrived in, they got that chance. It wasn't easy. My mom worked sewing dresses while my grandmother watched me during the day. When my brothers and I were older, she worked in a factory. My parents sacrificed, working hard, learning English, and don't even get them started on how cold the winters were. They sacrificed like other immigrants did before them, and like immigrants today sacrifice, so that they and their children would have that chance. It wasn't easy, but we got our chance. There is nothing unique in the story of my parents. Many of your ancestors left everything they ever knew and everyone they ever loved. Some left in chains. Others left fleeing the oppression of tyranny, or the pains of hunger, or the hopelessness of despair. Their sacrifice is your gain. They got their chance. And for many, I'm sure it wasn't easy. But at least, they weren't treated the way immigrants are being treated today. Today, in your name, children are being kept in cages. Immigrants are scapegoated and dehumanized every day by the President of these United States. Those seeking asylum are treated like criminals, and nursing children are separated from a mother's breast. This is wrong. I know enough history to know that while this isn't the America I knew, it has happened before and is part of our history. We are fighting against that same sentiment that has produced some of the most shameful periods of our American history. Families broken in the slave trade, Native children being sent to boarding schools, Japanese internment, the Irish being treated as subhumans. You know it's wrong. That's why you're here today. So here's my ask. Let the politicians know it's wrong. They work for you. Make them listen. Call them. Let them know when they do something right. Senator John Tester co-sponsored the Keep Families Together Act. Let him know that you appreciate it and you noticed. When Governor Bullock said no to sending our National Guard to the Mexican border, did you call? Yeah. All right. Right. Call. Speak up. Because you know those who hate immigrants are calling. Tell Representative Gianforte and Senator Daines, enough is enough. Tell them to support the Family Reunification Act. Insist that they pass the DREAM Act. Tell them you don't appreciate when they scapegoat and dehumanize the other, with their talk of illegals and MS-13. In a very real way, these immigrants seeking asylum, They are here because we were there. Those fleeing Guatemala, Honduras, El Salvador, are fleeing a situation created in part by our foreign policy. For decades, we destabilized these countries. We funded civil wars. We supported dictators, and we attacked their institutions of democracy. As Warren Shire wrote in her poem called Home, no one leaves home unless home is the mouth of a shark. No one puts their children in a boat unless the water is safer than the land. They are here because we were there. I am here because you were there. History aside, act. You are still a citizen of this republic. Call your officials. Tell them families belong together. Demand that they stop ripping infants from mothers. Because today, as my daughter in whom I see the realized dreams of my immigrant mother, as she prepares for college, I'm not sure what kind of country we're living in. We have to do better. Get to know immigrants in your community. Listen to the dreamers. You'll see the American dream is alive and well.
Let's keep it that way.
And for the dreamers and immigrants, bienvenido. Estás en tu casa. So act, donate to charity, call your politicians, do it. Because when you do it, you're not just doing it for the immigrants. You're doing it for yourself and humanity. Because a country that rips children away from mothers is a country that's capable of doing anything to anyone. Do it before you and yours wake up one day and face that horrible decision to leave everything you ever knew and everything you ever loved. Si se puede.
Thank you so much, Jorge. For every strategist with a heart that's been around the block like Jorge, we need some new fire and solidarity. I met Kelly Two Teeth, an Indigenous activist, a few months ago, and I'm impressed with Kelly's knack for keeping it all connected and reminding me of the impacts big policies have on people right here in Montana. Welcome, Kelly.
All right. Before I get started, I'd like to introduce Delbert. Delbert Skidmore is an important member of our community, especially the Indigenous community. And he would like to share a song with you guys. At my dad's funeral, my grandmother's funeral, he always sang in honor. So today, I feel before I speak, he will sing in honor for the people. Thank you.
My name is Black Lightning. I hail from the Fort Belknap Reservation. I'm a Roadrunner clan from White Mountain, Apache, Arizona. And I'm a northern and feathered one from Fort Belknap, Black Watch people. That song, it comes from Kenny Scabby of Black Lodge Singers. It's for the veterans.
Today, as we gather with hundreds of thousands of Americans, out of anger and fear of the Trump administration's zero tolerance policy, I can't help to think about how your average ICE officer cannot tell the difference between a Native American and an immigrant. You know why? Because there is no difference. We didn't cross the border crossed us. My grandmother went to 4 boarding schools and had the indigenous beat out of her. It took her almost her whole lifetime to find it again. And she taught me and my sister that we need to honor our culture and that there is no difference. My great-grandfather, his name was Two Teeth, which is Niswapit in our language. We don't know much past that because when in boarding school, he had to pick a colonized name. What they are doing to these children today, they've already done to ours, and we are all the same. After today, we won't stop fighting. We won't stop fighting until these children are taken back to their families. We should call for the abolishment of ICE. ICE was born out of the war on terror, but little do we often forget is that this country was built on terror itself. The only reason I am original and they are immigrants is because the first immigrants came here and drew an imaginary line. And I will not stand by and watch it happen. The first immigration law was the Chinese Exclusion Act. Our first immigration law was how can we not let one specific type of people come in. Our immigration law has been involved and en route in that. When it comes to immigration, race is always a variable. Racism is built into the DNA of America. And as long as we turn a blind eye to those suffering and its oppression, we will never escape those origins. The only safeguard people of color have is the right to a defense, and we don't even give immigrants that. Due to the failure of immigration, systematic genocide is still alive and well. Laws that are allowed children to be locked away from their parents, that categorize brown people as criminals just for seeking asylum, they claim genocide has ended, but tell that to the thousands of children that are kept away from their families right now. In this issue, there was no alternative to justice. There was no other option. To be in favor of these actions, you are in favor of lining the pockets of private prisons that are locking up children. Where money is more important than humanity? Is this the America that we live in? Where children are only considered children unless if they're citizens? Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses, your yearning to be free. That used to be a promise, but now I feel like it's just words on concrete, and we won't stop fighting until it becomes a promise again. Thank you.
We're going to have more to hear from Kelly in the years to come, right, you all? Yeah. You know, there's something in the pit of my stomach and a catch in my throat that drives me to be here today. It's that pure essence of survival, of care, and of that thread that we all hold together, family. Each of us, no matter what those experiences, if they're good, if they're bad, and we just strive to have that relationship with our families, it is core to all of our being. I have had the privilege to be a friend and a fellow activist with an amazing member of our community who inspires me what they will do for their family, what they will do for their safety and security, and what they will do for each and every one of you and for all of us. I'm clearly not the only one inspired by him because we elected a mayor.
Thank you. Good morning, Helena and the surrounding area.
Thank you, thank you. It's nice to see all of you here today. We're here today because our government is breaking our laws. We're here today to tell the government that seeking asylum is not a crime. I like that sign. It's in our books. We know that it's not a crime. The government is not only breaking our laws, but international laws as well. And it's time that we let them know. We let them know, why is it that we have to communicate with our government through rallies? Why do we have to do that? We have representatives that represent us. I hear you. I'll listen. But we're supposed to be talking to our government about the laws we're breaking. And it's not okay. In this political climate that we endure, it is time for us to realize that living in our echo chambers and avoiding interactions with those of political values different from ours is only deepening the divide. And causes us to dehumanize one another. We can and need to do more listening, understanding, responding with respect and patience rather than anger and hate. And that's what our government is doing. Responding with anger and hate. The gap that separates us is much larger than we often anticipate. We need to start sitting down and having a conversation with someone who is not like you. We need to start having that conversation with someone who has different values. It's okay. It's not illegal. It will help to bring that opportunity for bridging the invisible gap that keeps us apart from our fellow Americans. I realize that assertiveness and veracity is sometimes needed to help shape a more tolerant society. But being active in fighting for social justice and human rights should not exclude you from talking to the political counterparts. It is time. It is time to act. It is time. It is time to call your elected officials. Now, my ask for you today is so simple. Because you know why it's simple? Because you've done it before. And you can do it again and again and again. We will be judged. Our kids are watching us. So I urge all of you to continue to follow your hearts and living a life that advocates for more tolerance, more inclusivity, more acceptance, and more love. It is my greatest honor to serve as mayor of Helena. We truly have the best justice warrior on the planet, and I'm proud to stand with you all day, all night. Thank you for showing up. I will close with saying that this hoopla started because we don't understand. Our government does not understand our own laws. How can people seeking asylum be considered illegal? You're not. You're asking for assistance. That's all you're doing. And when we ripped their kids apart, you know what? I know what it is to be separated from your family. I lived it. I lived it for 2 years and 7 months. It's not pretty. And mine was done by choice. I did it by choice. And it was not pretty. Can you imagine what the other families are going through when they don't even know? At least I knew my wife was in Helena. At least I knew my daughter was in Helena. Can you imagine other families not knowing where their 5-year-old are? It has to stop. And it stops with you. It stops with us. I will stop here and say, a luta continua. The struggle continues.
For our mayor, no hate, no fear. Immigrants are welcome here, no hate, no fear. Refugees are welcome here, no hate, no fear. Immigrants are welcome here, no hate, no fear. Refugees are welcome here, no hate, no fear. Immigrants are welcome here, no hate, no fear. Refugees are welcome here. Yes. Next week I'm headed out of town for a few days, 3 nights. It will be the longest that I've been away from my kids. And when I hear the story of the father who entered the U.S. from Mexico with his 4-month-old baby to request asylum and was immediately separated from his child, I can barely stomach it. His baby was taken into custody by the Office of Refugee Resettlement while the father was taken to ICE and transported into a detention center in Texas, after which he was deported without his child.
Shame! Shame! Shame!
It has been over 4 months since that father and child have been separated, and I am worried about 4 days. That baby is 8 months old, and that is why we are demanding a complete end to the separation of immigrant families. The reunification of immigrant families and children who have been separated. And to zero tolerance detention of families who are seeking asylum now. And a way for our friends and neighbors, immigrants who are here, to fully participate, including passage of a Clean Dream Act. I'm a community organizer at heart, and while the situation is bad, and it's been a rough week, we've got to see the cracks. The Trump administration and ICE flinched. They flinched, and they are intimidated that we are out here filling the streets, that we are filling the airways.
They ought to be.
And that is why, like Mayor Wilma Collins said, we must do everything. We must talk to our neighbors. We must talk in the grocery store line. We must talk to our coworkers, even you that work at the state. And we must keep fighting, and we must keep standing up. The executive order Trump signed is no solution, but to the crisis that he created. It keeps kids imprisoned indefinitely, and it does not reunite the thousands of kids separated. The order does, however, show that the administration is feeling the pressure. This is our power. This is our power. We can stop these things from happening. We need everyone to raise their voices. If you have ever looked back on history, on the horrific moments in our history, and ask, what would I do? What would I have done? Would I have stopped it? Would I have said no? Would I have stood in that doorway? Would I have put my body in the way? It is your time right now to find out and to act. Families belong together and free. Families belong together and free. Families belong together and free. Again, families belong together and free. Yes, thank you. Please go out and act. Thank you.